Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're Masechtas Nedarim Daf Lamed Hey. Although we saw it, let's review the very top of Lamed Daled Beis, which is only about 10 lines. So Amar Rabbi, Haisel fun of Kikar Shel Hefker. So we mentioned that it has to be specifically a Kikar Shel Hefker, and not that you owned it, as the Ran says, this chiluk. And what happens, therefore, if, again, you have this bread, which is ownerless, and you say that it's hektish, natul achla, and he took it to eat it, with das to eat it, moil kulo, so then he's considered to be moil on the entire thing, so he has to pay the entire value. However, he didn't actually pick it up, he wasn't kain it, but rather the whole purpose was not for him, but rather when he would die, that his children will inherit it. So moyo lefi tovas hanashava. So they will get the meila will be not for its entire value because it's not really his, but for the tovas hana that he did for his son by doing this for him. If a person says, my bread is usher to you. So the question is, what happens if a nasnalo b'matana? Now all of a sudden you give it as a gift, mahu. Kikari omerlo, it's only when it's a my bread. Therefore, ki isa rishusehu de aser, only when it's in my rishus. But now that it was given over to you as a gift, it's not mine. And therefore, because of that, maybe it's allowed to. Odilma alecha omerle, the focus is the word alecha, to you. And therefore, it's always going to be aser because my focus is you are not allowed to have it. So in this, the Gemara asks, the l'chara should always be forbidden as it's hektish. So amalei pshita diafagav diyoyvla b'matana aser. So he says that again, what is the answer? Do we say that it's always forbidden? So pshita diafagav diyoyvla b'matana aser. It doesn't make any difference. Even though he gave it to him as a gift, the mitzvah is that it was alecha, and therefore it's an isser upon him, and therefore it's not his. Ella, what happens if instead kikari alecha? What does it mean kikari alecha? Lafuki mai lav lafuki the iganva mine mignav. Maybe it's coming to exclude a situation where it's actually stolen from you. Somerle lo lafuki the azmne Allah. It's referring to a situation where you invited him as a guest. So look at the last line of this Ran. The chi karmele alecha on you is lafuki di azmene, is if you invite him as a guest. Titzerle, it's aser dahi shaita lemikikarahi, because nami kikarahu, it's still your bread. So since he's coming to your house, so maybe it's coming to tell you that if you would invite him, that's when it's considered to be the bread is aser to him. However, otherwise, maybe not. As we continue to Lamed Hamad Aleph. So, Eisvei. So, the Gemara asks the following question. Amr lo, if you said to him, Hashileni porascha, lend me your cow. Amr lo, so they said back to him, Kainim para, I'm making this neder regarding this cow, Shani kanui alecha, nechasi alecha. Para el zu. So basically, he's saying, I'm proving that I only have one para, so I can't lend it out to you, because it's not like I have tons of animals, and therefore you can borrow one, I still have another 100. So he's basically showing that he only has one. And he said, if I do have a para, this is a neder that it's usher to you. So this is, again, a way of him establishing and letting him know that, in fact, he only has one para. Hashileni kar dumcha. Let's say, instead of a cow, he says, can I borrow your hatchet? Somerlo says, kaidim kardum, I'm making a neder regarding a hatchet, shieshli, that I have, shani kanuya nechase olai. Im yeshli kardum elazu. So again, he's basically proving, he's saying, this is the only hatchet I have, so therefore I cannot lend it to you. What if it turns out that Taka, he did have another cow, he did have another hatchet, so we say, B'chayiv, since he made this neder, so it's aser. Says the Ran, im nimsa sheish lo para acher, so kardom acher, if in fact it turns out he does have, then we see the neder is chal. However, Mace, let's say he dies, and here's the key line, O shenitno b'matana harizem mutter. If the person dies, or it was given as a matana, then it's mutter. So the question is, says the Ran, v'kashel Rava de asar. How come Rava said over here on the previous Amud, which is why I wanted to see this whole Amud, that Rava, they established that it's a davar pashit that di'ayvle b'matana is asar. So, and that's what, again, Rava was posed that question. He says it's davar pashit, even though you give it over as a gift, it's still asar. So the question is, but it says over here that in this circumstance, the neder doesn't have any validity anymore once it's given over as a matana. So here we see a kasha on Rava. So Amar Rav Acha b'Reid Rav Ika shenitnulo al yidei acher, that was given through the means of another. Says first, before we see the answer, Rashi says Katani shenitnulo b'matana harizem mutter kasha Rav Gav di'yavle b'matana aser. So look at the Ran. So shenasnu madir, the one who made the neder, gave leinish de alma to some other person. V'yachachach nasnu zeh lemudar, and then that person gave it to him. So it wasn't that it was directly given to him. In that situation, maybe that wouldn't be good. However, what happened was he gave it to some stranger, and then a stranger ended up giving it to him. That much we say is the neder is no longer chal. Ravashi dekanami, and I'll prove that's the case. The Tani shenitno lo, it was given to him. V'okatani shenasno lo, that it doesn't say shenasna lo, it was shenitno lo. Somehow it eventually got to him, which means that it wasn't initially given to him. Nonetheless, we still see we see that it's mutter, but maybe it's only mutter because it was first given al yidei acher. Okay, next question. So actually, let's see the Ran. Le'inyan halacha, kaimu the afagan the yovel nihil b'matana, even though it was given as a gift, it's still aser, which is again like we paskin like the shita of like Rava. Okay, ba mine Rava, Rav Nachman. So Rava pose a question out of Rav Nachman. Yesh me'il b'koinamois olo. Is there a din of is chal on it an element of hektish when it comes to kanamos? A kainam is a kinoi for karbanos. So is this considered to be that this person is over mi'ila? Has this person actually violated the isser of mi'ila by the means of a kainam? So let's look in the Ran. Ha'oiser davar alav b'kainam. A person uses a kainam like a carbon, and then he gets hana from it. Says the Ran, Miamrinan de asu carbon, does it have the same status as carbon? Can the hendim in the kachim? So it has this. Does a kainim have the same status of you being setting aside and designating it as a carbon? So we learned makam shnas shenoitan aleha sachar. We said even if you made a neder, so the din is that you can still return the lost object, and we discussed who can return the lost. Who are we talking about? Is the neder on the machzer veda? Is the one who's returned the object, or is it the bala veda? So we discussed all of that. So he says that if the place in which the person gets paid for giving it, tipo hanol hektish. Then we say the din is that you're supposed to give it to hektish, that money. Well, remember, what is it? Which, first of all, as we saw, what that statement certainly means that you could give it. However, the whole question is, what do you do with that money? So remember, we see ki hektish has the same din of hektish. Ma hektish sheshlo mi'bo mi'ila av kanamas sheshben mi'ila. So look at the Ran. The ilo dummy kanamas hektish are not the same. Havi lememer yolach noli amamelech. Then we should say a different din. We should say not that it should go to hektish, but rather you should say throw into the amamelech, like we find numerous places. El mishum de konamos sheshben mi'ila. Hektish. So therefore, that apparently is a raya. The Gemara says the truth is kitanoi. It's actually a machlokas tanoim. The person says kainam kikar zu hektish. Now, the fact you said that this bread, so this is, as the Ran explains, is considered to be a kainim, which is a kloli, a general statement, by saying zu, this. Says the Ran, she'asr kainim l'chol, you're basically answering this to all kehektish. Shu asr l'chol adam. You're saying this is asr to everyone. V'achla, and the person eats it, bein hu bein chaveno imayil. Since you're asking it to everyone, so there's a din mi'ila. And therefore, the Ran says, obviously that shows that there's a din mi'ila by konamos, even though you use the language of kainim. Lafikach yesh la pidyon. Therefore, there is an element of redemption, says the Ran. Tkivan de mitzar, a kuli alma kehektish tafis pidyoinai. So just like hektish is the din pidyon, so too also when it comes to this. However, kikar zu olai, but let's say the person instead uses the language of it's on me, which is considered to be a kainim prati. It's only specifically answering to yourself, lahaktish v'achlan, you ate it, so who moil chaver lo moil. However, your friends are not going to be moil. Lafikach ein lo pidyon, says the Ran, dikivan de b'chaver lo moil, since it's your friend who would get hana from it is not moil, lo olim kehektish lo mitvas pidyoinai. It doesn't have the strength of hektish that you could be paid it. Okay. Divrei Rab Meir. So we see clearly Rab Meir holds yesh konamos, that yesh mi'ila b'konamos. However, as the machlos tanaim, chalamam min kach lebein kach lo moil of yesh in mi'ila b'konamos. So he says the machlos tonight. Armulei Rav Acha beredu Rav Avilu Rav Ashi kikari alecha. A person says that this bread is upon my bread is upon you, benaslo b'matana, and he said, and he gives as a gift, mi moil. So again, we end up paskening that bread is still asar. However, mi moil in that situation. If, let's say, again, it was given over to this person and he eats it. So li moil noisein, should we say the giver of the bread is moil? Halo asira ale li moil. So halo asira lai. It wasn't asar to him because he was only saying that it should have this person. It should have the status of like hektish, but not to him. So limo makabel. So maybe the one who accepts the bread should be the one who's moil. Yochel the aimer heter ba'asi asirlo ba'isi. He can say that I only wanted beheter. I did not want something which was be'isr. So if we look in the Ran, the afgav the b'maitzim rishus hektish, even though it did leave the rishus hektish when he ate it, esher diafil b'tois moil. It was, and even by mistake, there's a din meal. Shani hacha shehu lo hotzia el chaver hotzia. I didn't do anything. It was my friend. V'zelu asa el shekibla. This person only did was he accepted it. So he wasn't the originator of the giving it, profaning this food. So the question is, who's the person who should be moil in this situation? So Amrlei Makabel moil. We say that the Makabel, the one who received the bread, Likashiyotzi, only once it goes out. Only once it goes out. Says the Ran, Mihashta in Echnehem moil. But right now, no one is moil until it goes out. Shekol hamaitzi mois haktish l'chulin kisaver shulchulin hu moil avzeh moil. So the din is that this person is moil. Okay. Now if we look in the Ran, he says l'inyan halacha kaman k'Rab Meir de'esh mi'il b'konamois. The din is that there is me'ila when it comes to konamois. The Kaimelan says the Ran nami the kainim kloli. That when it comes to kainim kloli, such as kainim kikar zu hektish, so it's usher on everyone, and therefore yeshlo opinion. There's opinion. Umastafka li mandim b'moyel b'konamois. He's unsure. The one who says you are moyel, I mishtri hahu kainim will basid a moyel kehektish shiotz l'chulin adi me'ilah. He's not sure if a person, if it's mutter, the one who made this kainim after it's already moyel, that the din is hektish, that it's yotz l'chulin adi me'ilah. He's not sure what the status is after this person's moyel regarding this item. Okay, let's look at question 1. which is the opinion of Rameir. Ha'im yesh mehen nami pidyon keheknish. The answer we saw yes. Im yoitzel chulin achar shemoyel keheknish. So that's not so clear. So let's see what he writes. B'koinim klali yesh mehen pidyon. B'koinim prati ein pidyon. So as we mentioned, and v'im yoitzel chulin hu safik daharan v'lo pashit. So that is a question that the Ran poses and does not cite an answer to that inquiry. Okay, so let's continue now with the next daf. Yerushalmi nadar minakikar mahu achemam boas yada v'lo ifshita. So okay, let's continue now with the next Mishnah on Lamed Haman Beis Masnisin. V'tayreim es trumasai. So this is going back. One who made a neder against him is still able to separate his truma. That's not considered to be a problem. We'll discuss why that's the case. As Rashi says, Mefarish B'Gemara, umasraisav l'daito, and you could also separate his meiser with consent. And the Ran's says we're gonna see l'dato deman, whose consent. And then we're going to focus a lot on this next part of the Mishnah. Umakar v'lav kini zavin. Let's say if this person is a Kohen, so is he allowed to still bring karbanos for him? So yes, he can be makar of the kini zavin, these birds, kini zavais, kini aladais, chatas v'yashamais. He can bring all these different karbanos on his behalf. Umalamdo midrash. He's allowed to teach him Torah, halachos vegados. But why? Isn't he getting hana from him? So on this, the Ran says the mitzvos lovely hanais nitnu. The purpose of Torah and mitzvos is not to get hana per se, but to do the gzar din of learning Torah and doing mitzvos. Avalo yilamdenu mikra, but you shouldn't teach chumash. We'll see why. Avalamidhu as banav as banaisa mikra, but you can teach his kids chumash. Okay, so all that will be discussed later. Iboyl, reflecting Gemara, Hani Kohanim, that's the famous Shas Sugya. Hani Kohani Shluchid Didan Havi or Shluchid Dishmaya. So when it comes to a Kohen that does the avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, are they considered to be my shliach, my agent, or is it Shluchid Dishmaya? Are they like agents from Hashem? Now the Ran right away says, Afagav de beper kamad kedushin, asik Rav Huna the shlichid rachmaninhu. He ends up paskening, and this is going to end up being like a maskana over here, a very important Ran that discusses this, which is going to be TB11. Just mark that down. That lahalacha, it must be the kohanim shluchid rachmana. The yisachadad shluchid didaninhu. If it's considered to be my shliach and I'm not a kohen, mi ikamidi. Is there anything to anan l'masin l'mevid v'inu avdi? If I can't do the avoda, so how can I appoint a shliach to do the avoda for me? The only time an agent works is if the principal, the person himself, is able to do it too. So this actually, again, this question was already answered in the beginning of Masechtas Kedushin. So let's see what I wrote for question 11. We learned from Gemara and Kedushin, it is pashut they are shluchid deshmaya. They can't be our shliach because you can't appoint someone to do shlichus for you if you yourself can't do that thing like a zar doing avoda. Okay, that sounds like a good answer. All right, let's continue with the Gemara though. L'may nafkamina. What is the difference? At the end of the day, they still have to have the avoda done. L'mudar hana. If let's say you made an iser hana that you're now to derive benefit from this kohen, now can he now bring karbanos? Now he's doing, you're deriving benefit from him. However, if it's shulchan d'shmaya, so even if let's say you're not going to get hana from them, well, it's not an issue. So tashma did not. Makrav of kini zavin hu. We see l'chayra b'ferish nar mishnah raya that the din is that they could do it. So it must be that shluchid d'shmaya. Now, iyam shluchid dadan kamahani le l'chayra would be a problem. If it's shluchid dadan, you're getting hana from them. So the Gemara says not necessarily is that a raya. L'tamech Listening makriv of karbanos. So just say karbanos stam. Why does it mention dafka these? It must be specific. Ella mechoisri kapara shani. Those that are missing kapara, it's different. What does that mean? So let's look right in the Ran. Kloimer, v'adarabba, tishach, l'idach gisa. Says the Ran, maybe you can learn a raya pumfakert. Why? Dikivan de tana mechusri kapara. Since it only mentions cases of people that are missing kapara, that they're missing this one element, bilchud the ein tzrich and das, that those situations there's no das required for those karbanos to be brought. Mashma davka hani, maybe only these are allowed. Misham dikivan the ein tzrich and das, since those people there's no don't even need consent. Vadi kain lav shlichus and kavid. Obviously, he's not your shliach, because how is it possible that these kohanim are your shliach when the person himself doesn't even know what's going on? So obviously he's not being appointed as a shliach. So maybe it's dafka these are shluchei d'shmaya. Maybe when it comes to all other karbanos, they are considered to be shluchei didan. The iloi lisni makrav of karbanos. Otherwise, it should just say all karbanos. Skipping a line. Maybe it's coming to teach a big chiddush. Matirol echel b'kodshim, even though they're allowed to eat kodshim, shari v'koshikin b'shar karbanos. So you would think maybe the kohen can't bring this carbon because it matters you to then eat kodshim. So this is a form of hana. So maybe you think it's aser kamash malan. So in other words, maybe this is the whole chiddush. It's when it comes to mechusir kapara, then perhaps these situations maybe not, because those situations you're actually allowing them to do something. When it comes to a regular carbon, nothing. There's no difference. I could always eat kachim, but when it comes to these things, or mechusir kapara, this action is even more beneficial. Maybe when it comes to this, you certainly would say you can't do it because they're definitely giving you hana. So kamash one, perhaps that's the reason why it's mentioned over here, which is why this is not really, as the Ran says, miulo mifshata ba'ayin legamri. This is, you can't flip it the other way around because it's not clear, because it's possible that it's dafka coming to teach us that when it comes to these things, there's something special about them, because there's mechusir kapara, you would think gufa, that is the greatest hana. Okay, question 2. Makrav of carbon kini zavin madua lotana makrav of karbanos. Why doesn't it just say it straight? So this is what it says. B'chol karbanos related shluchei didaninu. Maybe we think when it comes to all other karbanos, really it's he is your shliach. For rachmim mechusur kapara, only when it comes to these, dein tzrich and das lav shulchusei kavod, or mechusur kapara it's tzrichalei. Maybe you need it, says the Ran. Havamina kivan dematir b'kodshim litzer. Maybe this is worse, because now it's going to matir kodshim, so therefore maybe these things are not allowed. Okay. Every carbon needs consent. We know that you could even be makriv these karbanos if your child is a katan and is mechusar kapara. Shnemar zos taras azav, and azav is an example of mechusari kapara. Bein gadol bein katan, even if it's a katan, what it obviously means is no das, but the father can still do it on his behalf anyway. El miyato Rabbi Yochanan zos taras hayoledes v'gaimer ben katan ben gedayla katanala bas leidahi. So what are you telling me? A little girl, she's capable of giving birth. V'hatani Rabbi kamed Rav Nachman shosh nashim mishamshus b'moich. There are 3 women that use a moich, this cloth, to not get pregnant. Katana umuberes manika. The reason for a katana is shematis aber v'tomos. We see a katana could potentially give birth, but she'll end up dying. So she's not really going to be capable of having a child. So what does that mean? That drash is different. Ben pikachas ben shaita. It's saying that even if your wife is a shaita, shekain adam maybe carbon al ishto shaita kedivi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda allows that you could even bring your carbon yuledes, which is mechusar kapara, for your wife, even though she's a shaita, which means she has no das. Tisan Yehuda Omer Adam maybe carbon usher al ishto. Person can bring a carbon for his wife. V'chol karbano shechayeves, and all the women, all the karbanos she's obligated. Shekaf kaisavla, because as it is written, v'achrayis diislich alai min kadamas dana. So since that is part of the stipulation, so therefore the din is that the man is allowed to be makriv karbanos on his wife's behalf. We're going to stop there. Question 3. So really, the Gemara doesn't really come up with a teretz at this point what the din is, whether or not it's shluchah didan or shluchah rachmana. Question 3. Adam maybe carbon al ishto shaita be'eze carbon lo mishkachas law. So where do we not find that? That we're going to see. We don't see this, but generally you are allowed to bring it for your wife. We're going to see in tomorrow's daf the exception to that rule. TA 10. A person who makes a neder against his friend, who koyin him yachol hakrav of karbanos. Are you allowed to be makrav karbanos? Our Mishnah says clearly, umadua, why? So either we say stam karbanos, tali ikohani shluchah didan od rachmana. It all depends what you hold. If you hold shluchah di rachmana, then you can. Shluchah didan, no. Umishkachas la di ein sarch das makriv karban olav. B'chosuri kapara ein sarch das makriv olav. When it comes to b'chosuri kapara, everyone holds that you can do so, but perhaps it's not because it's a raya that it's shluchah di rachmana or shluchah didan, as we saw in the Ran, but rather it's just coming to tell you that this is the din when it comes to b'chosuri kapara, that you could be they could be makriv these, but perhaps not other karbanos. So again, we don't really bring a raya to either one, whether or not the din is that it's shluchah didan or shluchah rachmana. Ad kan.